Hey, how's it going, class? This is Mr. Miles coming at you. Back with some more podcasts, and we're going to begin Chapter 4. And what we're introduced now is we moved away from plants, we're moving on to animals. So the big question that this first lesson is going to focus on is, what is an animal? So this is a question we kind of want to answer, and as we go through it, we're going to talk about all the different things with animals. Now, a few things that we've talked about, and we were kind of talking about different qualifications an animal has. One, it has to be able to reproduce, so it has to be able to make more of itself. It needs to be able to eat, and then it also will produce waste from this eating. It needs to be able to move. And it's important that animals can move or have things move around. And we learned about an animal today, the sponge, that really doesn't move at all. He just kind of sits in place, but he's manipulating things around him to get it to move towards him. So he's one of the exceptions. Now, some animals you say, well, I didn't know a starfish moves. They actually do. And even with sea anemones and coral, is they do move, just not, they don't just get up and walk. But movement is an extremely important part of animals. That's because of another thing that kind of fits them over. They're also heterotrophs. And remember, heterotrophs means that they can't make their own food, so animals need to eat other organisms in order to survive. Another thing that's very important for animals to exist is to have this. Is to have homeostasis. And if you guys remember, homeostasis means to maintain internal conditions. So they can keep their bodies from getting too hot or from too cold, so that they wouldn't die. Now, another thing that we learn after we learn about what animals are is something special about animals. And all organisms have these, but they're pronounced especially a lot in animals and ones that we can easily identify with. And these are called adaptations. And what adaptations are is it's either a behavior or a structure or both that help an animal function. So when it comes to structure, we can think of something like a tiger, and we saw that in our book and we talked about it. A tiger has different things, like it has claws, it has teeth, it has extremely powerful limbs, it has keen eyesight, it has good hearing, and all these help it to survive by helping it catch its prey. Now, the same thing with behavior is with humans. We are extremely influenced by this. Our behavior allows us to adapt to our environments. Our behavior is absolutely amazing, and you've heard people talk about maybe that you're not going to act the same way in front of your parents as you will with a group of your friends. You're going to adapt to each situation. Well, animals will all do the same thing too. There are certain animals like gazelles. Their behavior is adapted for their survival. You can look at behavior of a gazelle versus behavior of something like a lion, and their behavior is quite different. Because a gazelle, it's going to have very timid behavior because it's not a hunter. It's instead being hunted all the time. Now, if a gazelle were to have extremely aggressive behavior and all of a sudden it sees a lion coming and decides, oh, I'm going to go show this lion what's up, and goes and attacks the lion, well, then you run into a problem because the gazelle's obviously going to get eaten and destroyed. Whereas the lion's behavior of being aggressive is perfectly suited for exactly what it does. So behavior is an extremely important adaptation. The way an animal acts, what he's afraid of, what he goes after, when he's cautious, when he's not cautious. And so that's something to look into with different adaptations. Not just structure, but also behavior. Now this next part, and if you're not there, you might want to pause it and go and check and grab your book, is you want to look at page 140 and then also page 141. Now, the question they're asking here is they're saying, how are animals classified? Well, there's two main groups that we're going to be talking about. These two main groups are either the invertebrates or the vertebrates. And as you guys recall from class, we talked about a vertebrate is simply just a backbone. And so if this means it has a backbone, because a vertebrate means backbone, this in part in there means no. So this means no backbone. Now, the first few ones, and what we learned about today and what we're going to be learning about tomorrow, we're learning all about invertebrates. These are ones with no backbones. And this will go all the way up from, it'll go sponges, cnidarians, the different types of worms, mollusks, arthropods, echinoderms, and it stops there, and then later we're going to learn about fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals, and all of those will have backbones. So let's focus, so we're going to be focusing on the invertebrates this next lesson. Now, when you're looking at 140 and 141, the reason I told you to go get your book is you're supposed to look at how they look that they're related. And if you look down here, you remember we had that branching tree diagram, and I asked a question. I said, what is the closest related to mollusks, and what's the closest related to birds? And you can look down at that branching tree diagram, and you can see that the mollusk is most closely related to segmented worms. And the reason you can see that is because there's a branch that comes off here, and here you have your flatworms. Then off here, you have your mollusks. And then coming off that branch, you have your segmented worms. And so you can see the closest related to mollusks would be the segmented worms because of this close gap right here. You're not going to say it's the flatworms over here because their connection is all the way down here. It took place longer ago. And if you look over at the end on the vertebrates, when I asked who's most closely related to birds, you wouldn't want to put mammals because, yes, they both come from a point right here, but more specifically, birds branched off from reptiles right here. So you can see they're closer related than these two. So it should be reptiles and birds. Now, important enough, when we're talking about identifying things, I asked you the question, I said, what would happen if there was me, and on one side I had a monkey, or a chimp, and on the other side, there was a shark. Gotta love my awesome drawings. So there's a shark. It's me, a monkey, and a shark. And I say, which one would you guys say more closely related to? And a lot of people said, oh, well, it was obviously you were mostly closely related to the monkey because of two things. And you guys pointed out the actual look, the structures, the way that we looked similar, and also the oh, whoops, I got criticized for spelling this wrong the other day. And also the environment. So those are the two main ones. But I said, well, wait a second. But what about, if we're just using those two, what happens if I take a dolphin and add that to the mix? So you're telling me that a dolphin and a shark are the same, and of course right now you're probably shouting at your computer saying no, no, no. But, I mean, they have the same look. They both have those fins, and they both live in the same environment. They both live in water, right? But there's one thing that we're missing. We're also missing this, DNA. And DNA is what's telling this dolphin to take certain internal structures, making it actually a mammal and not a fish like the shark is. And so DNA is a huge influence on how we do these branching tree diagrams. So it's the look, the environment, and the DNA. Those are three important things to remember. So let's flip ahead in the book and talk a little bit about the next one. So then, again, remember we talked about the animal body plans. So each of these animals is set up in a very special and unique way, and these were the 4 words I gave you. Cell, tissue, organ, and organ system. And I said, how are each of these related? And you guys told me that a cell, well, it goes into tissue, and tissues turn into organs, and organs turn into organ systems. And that's extremely important. Cell, again, remember, it's that singular. It's going to be by itself. Tissue is a group of the same cells. Remember, a tissue is the group of the same cells. And then when you get enough of these tissues together, you create an organ. And that's where all these cells are working, and this is extremely important, working together. And then the last one is the organ systems, and you have all the organ systems working together again. And that's how all these are connected and how you get an animal body plan. Well, aside from just what those things do, is we're also looking at types of symmetry. And again, remember we said there's 3 different types. There's radial symmetry, there's bilateral symmetry, and there's also asymmetry. And remember what radial was. Radial means that we can cut it and make a mirror image in more than just one way. So if we have a wheel, you can do it in multiple different ways. And again, if you need to reference this, go look at page 144 and 145, and we have all those on there. Bilateral means you can only split it on one plane. So something like a human, a tiger, a crab, things like those. Those can only be split on one plane to get two equal mirrored halves. Remember, they have to mirror each other. And then remember, they don't have to be perfect. They should be pretty dang close. And the last one was asymmetry, meaning that A tells us simply it says no symmetry. So there was that dirty bag of laundry. That is asymmetry. The American flag, it actually didn't line up. It looked like it might have done it, but the boxes aren't in the right spot to line up, so we can't cut that into two equal halves. The sea sponge mixed with the coral, that couldn't do it. So asymmetry just means no symmetry. And remember, you're not going to see these on land. You're going to see these all in the water. So, all right, perfect. Especially when it comes to animals. So that is the first lesson 1 and lesson 2. If you need any additional stuff, because this is kind of just a brief overview of everything we went over. If you need anything more explained more in depth, make sure that you're emailing me, and I'll fill you in. So, yeah, until next time, take care. See you later. Bye.